item for this evening's meeting is Mike. And Mike, it seems very strange for me to try and introduce you and your talk this evening. But I think we're all delighted that you've agreed to speak to us about being a Methodist and how that has influenced your interest in interfaith work. So welcome, and we look forward to hearing you speak.
And thanks for your welcome. Some of you heard this story before in bits. Here goes. In 1999, I'd been Methodist superintendent minister in this area for nearly 10 years. I was over 60, and if I had any sense, I should have been winding down gently to retirement. What was it that compelled me to seek out new friends from other faiths and beliefs and to set up what has emerged as Canterbury? To move a lazy old slug like me, it needed something pretty compelling, probably a number of things. 5 years before, I had read Hans Kung's book, Global Responsibility, and I couldn't get the closing words out of my head. There can be no peace in the world until there's peace between the religions. There can be no peace between the religions until there's dialogue between the religions. And I was interested to hear Lynn quoting those same words in her excellent talk to the last Methodist Contemporary Theology group. Secondly, Canterbury had a lively council of Christians and Jews, but I felt there was a still wider job to be done. I was getting more and more annoyed with the Western media, this is harking back to what Sinan was saying, with the Western media laying into the Muslims, because when communism collapsed, the United States and others seemed to need a new bogeyman to justify keeping the arms trade up and running. We were also a year off the new millennium, the talk of a new start for the world. Do you remember all that? And that atmosphere didn't seem to last long, did it? But then it literally came home to me when our daughter married an Egyptian who was also a Muslim. We now had 90 relatives by marriage in a farming village on the Nile Delta. Well, our granddaughter's now 24, but when she was a toddler, watching her skipping in the sunny courtyard of a Cairo mosque, it was a 50-50 chance she might not be going to a Methodist Sunday school. And then I had the nightmare. It followed a terrible nuclear accident in all places, Japan. That wasn't the dream, that actually happened. The human race had finally done for itself and for this beautiful universe. When I woke up, I couldn't shake off a terrible sense of foreboding. It had been so vivid. I tuned in, as I often do, to the BBC World Service, that haven for insomniacs, and to Mark Tully's programme, Something Understood. That particular morning, it featured the way great religions use scriptures. And some of the finest and noblest words from each tradition conveyed such a message of hope that my mood of despair began to lift. It was the kick up the pants that I finally needed. I went to see a friend I had long admired for his gentle faith and generous vision. Arthur Weinberg was the leader of the local Baha'i community, he still is, and we had met at local meetings of the United Nations Association. We spent a wonderful morning together and decided to seek out friends from other faiths. I was part of the multi-faith chaplaincy team at Kent University. So I approached the Muslim and Buddhist chaplains and they joined us. I was also chaplain at the Kent and Canterbury Hospital, where a friendly man at the reception desk was an ex-RAF officer, Selva Raja. Are you by any chance a Hindu? I asked him rather cheekily. Yes, he said. And he joined us. A fellow Methodist, Christine Pilkington, introduced me to June Stein, a delightful Jewish woman. I'll never forget the atmosphere of our first meeting. Like stepping into a new dimension. Each of us spoke of our journey of faith. The Buddhist monk was full of surprises and turned out to be a computer whiz kid and designed a beautiful logo and banner, the same one we use to this day. At the next University Freshers' Fair, our banner was on display and our matching yellow flyers could be seen on the Buddhist, Muslim, and various Christian stalls. We soon realized that we had to work together if we were going to do anything at all about ending war and slavery and poverty and homelessness, about the refugee question, to save this beautiful planet, and to rid our race of racism. Massive educational, political, spiritual task. And what could we do? Small bunch of people. We had to start somewhere, and we believe we had to start right here with ourselves and with some modest steps appropriate to our own hometown. And so Canterbury began. I spoke at the start of this of the chain of events that motivated me to go and see Arthur that day. But where does my faith tradition feature in all this? I've come to realize, to my surprise, that our small British Methodist Church has produced a large number of people active in interfaith work out of all proportion to her size. Martin Forward is one of our ministers. Deacon in the Church of South India, was a lecturer in Islamic studies at Hyderabad, Leicester, Derby and Bristol. He was Dean of the Methodist Theological College, Wesley House, Cambridge, where he co-founded the Centre for Jewish-Christian Relations. And he is now a professor in the United States. He said, Methodism has encouraged and paid for me to be a wandering interfaith person during the last decade. Without its support, I would have no home and no chance to ponder the things of God in ways appropriate to my life's journey. One of Martin's heroes, and certainly one of mine, is the late Professor Geoffrey Parender. Whenever I preached at Orpington Methodist Church during our 7 years in the leafy suburbs, it was daunting to know that in the congregation was a man described as having more degrees and most people have O-levels. But each time he would have something encouraging to say and some interesting book to recommend. He's a real teacher. As a Methodist missionary, mainly in Benin, he became a world authority on African religion. It brought him 3 doctorates and many other degrees done the hard way, externally. He joined the Department of Religious Studies at Ibadan, Nigeria, the first of its kind in the world, and was also reader in comparative religion at King's College London. Again, a brand new post. In the 60s, he taught Desmond Tutu for his BD and supervised his Master of Theology. His books on Islam, Indian religion, and world religions are still widely read. The respected Annual Register of World Events, first published in 1758 under the editorship of Edmund Burke, has one section on religion. Don't know what that says about their view of religion. Well, for 45 years, Geoffrey was the first and only person to write that article, producing the last one in his early 90s. His colleague Ursula King wrote, "Methodism made Geoffrey Parander what he was. It led him to his initial vocation, provided his early training, and launched him on his academic career. As one of the internationally renowned religious studies figures of the 20th century, he also grew far beyond his own church." Professor Ken Cracknell, the ex-director of Interfaith Relations for the British Council of Churches, was once asked rather sharply by a colleague, "What is one of Mr. Wesley's preachers doing in the interfaith movement?" We had our backwoodsman as well. Well, Ken pointed to a sermon by John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, entitled "The Catholic Spirit." It offers a photo fit of a Methodist encountering those of other beliefs. And it's set in the language of his time, if you'll bear with that. It's not the whole sermon, it's just a few points from it. While he is steadily fixed in his religious principles on what he believes to be the truth as it is in Jesus, while he firmly adheres to the worship of God, which he judges to be the most acceptable in his sight, and while he is united in the tenderest and closest ties to one particular Christian tradition, his heart is enlarged towards all mankind, those he knows and those he does not. He embraces with strong and cordial affection neighbours and strangers, friends and enemies. This is Catholic and universal love. And he that has this is of a Catholic spirit. For love alone gives the title to this character. Catholic love is a Catholic spirit. Well, that sermon and that spirit have inspired many of Wesley's followers, not just the brilliant ones I've mentioned, but also people like me, the foot soldiers among the laity and the ministers, enabling us to contribute both to the ecumenical movement That's to the movement for unity among Christians and Christian churches, but also to what I feel is the wider ecumenism of interfaith relations. Thank you.
Mike, thank you so much for that.